Moses, 5 books of the Torah, you have Sefer Yeshua, then Shoftim, then Shmuel, and then it comes to Melachim. It's a whole process that I think, I just want to say off the top of my head, like the biggest points in history of Jewish history were probably going out of Egypt, receiving the Torah, getting the Mishkan maybe, and then the kingship of Shlomo Melech was maybe higher than, in certain ways, higher than them all, because that's the ultimate goal, is that we should have a Malchus in this world, that we should bring down the Torah to this world, which happens when you have a full-scale government. So the process of all these farms, they're all building up towards that process. If you look at Yeshua, what happens there? We come into Eretz Yisrael, and we're trying to settle Eretz Yisrael. That's the first thing. Yeshua is leading us, and it's a lot of divine providence behind us. People are really following Hashem's ways. There's a unity behind Yeshua. And so he goes a long way towards settling Eretz Yisrael. All the different tribes finding their place and starting to settle it. And then it's Sefer Shoftim. It's a transitional period of clarification, of sorting. Each tribe had to now assert itself, find itself, conquer whoever, its enemies, whatever enemies had to conquer, and bring out its identity. And when each tribe was able to bring out its identity, then the greater unity of the Jewish nation was forming. That's what happens in the process of Shoftim. And then after that is Shmuel, and then you're starting to move into the stage of a king. They were at the stage where the tribes had been settled more or less in their places, and their characters had been established. And it took a lot of conflict and efforts to get to that point. And then we start to have a king. So first we have Shaul, and then we have David. And most of Sefer Shmuel is about King David. That whole process of his becoming the king and being established as a king, and all the things he went through to create this Malchus Yisrael, which is the highest thing, bringing the Torah into this world in this full sense. Okay, now in this Sefer, that Sefer Melachim, it starts out for the end of David's life, but it's really about what comes after. It's setting up the process of Shlomo Melech becoming king, and the kings after him, and that's what Sefer Melachim is about. So it's a really high point. When we get to Shlomo Melech, we get to the highest point in history, really. And after that, it went down again. Now it's coming back up. Also, I want to say another thing here is that, one second. I want to say another thing is I want to tell you that who's the author of the Sefer. It's interesting because it's prophecy, it's also literature at the same time. And all this form of Tanakh had authors. Who was the author of Sefer Melachim? Yirmiyahu. Very good. So the Breita says it was Yirmiyahu Navi. So that's really interesting. And they bring in the Dat Mikra. He finds a lot of connections in the style and of the way it's written. And so it's written by Yirmiyahu Hanavi. Okay, so let's start now. V'melech David zakein ba b'yamim v'kasuhu b'bgadim lo yicham lo. So King David was ba b'yamim. He had been through a lot of days, and they covered him with clothing, and it wasn't warm to him. He didn't feel warm from it. So what it describes here is David Melech getting old. David Melech he's only 70 at this point, but it says in the Radak that he's fought all these wars. He was always fighting wars, and he was tired now. He's worn out. I guess all your adrenaline comes out. All of your kochos come out in the war after you get worn out from that. So that's what happened to David Melech. According to the Medrash also, just one more thing about this thing with 70 years. I mentioned this before. That David Melech was sort of not from this world in a certain sense. And the Medrash says that he wasn't going to live. He was going to be born like a stillborn. But then Adam Rishon foresaw that. And he realized that he was so important for the world, this ultimate idealist. sort of didn't fit into the system of the world. Everyone's sort of like going after their own desires and goals, and David Melch was completely idealistic, so he didn't fit into the world. So Adam Rishon gave him 70 years. So this was the end of his 7 years.
It's only 930?
Yeah. So right. So now he only had 930 out of 1,000. Yeah. That's the medrash. That's very interesting. Okay. So here he's ending this end of his 7 years. At this point, he had to be old. Okay.
It's also the same Lashon used by Abraham.
Yes, same Lashon as Abraham. Oh, so I was going to mention. So I want to mention that also in the medrash here. Very good. So this medrash, it's brought in Yochel Shmoni. It says like this. So he's old in the physical sense, and a lot of what's going to happen revolves around that. But it's also old. He says Zaken Baba Yamim in the spiritual sense, in a good sense. It says in the medrash. The Melech David Zaken Baba Yamim. The King David was old. He came in days. Zeu Shamar Kasa V'Teres Teferes Seva. It says it's a crown and glory, the old age. Heichen Hu Mitsuya. How do you find this crown of gold old age? Which is B'derek Tzedakah, Timsa. It's found in the place of Tzedakah. Somebody gives Tzedakah, he merits to longevity, to old age, in a good sense. Miyat Lamad Mi Abraham. Adich Kasu, Bo V'Shamru Derech Hashem, Asot Tzedakah Mishpat, Sakal Seva. Because he did Tzedakah and Mishpat, because Tzedakah, he was a giver, so therefore he merited to old age. Shnemar Bo V'Seva Tova. V'Zakar L'Zikna Shnemar V'Avram Zaken Baba Yami. Kena Tamotzi B'David. Hadei Shekasu Bo V'David Osei Mishpat Tzedakah L'Kol Amo Zakar L'Zikna. Because David did tzedakah and chesed to all of his nation, so therefore Mishpat tzedakah, therefore he merited to longevity, zikna. Melech David zaken Baba Yami. So it means that also. Okay, so that's interesting. So we're talking about something which is really special, to get old and feel like accomplished, happy, in a good sense. So that's what David had that also. Okay, so let's start the Sefer. Melech David zaken Baba Yamim yakasuhu begadim v'lo yicham lo. Melech David had come in days, and he was old, come in days, and they covered with clothing, and he wasn't warm. Yomer lavadav yivakshu ladnei Melech nara besula v'amdav nei Melech v'silo sochenes v'shachva b'cheikecha v'cham ladnei Melech. So what happens is you had like the doctors over here. Because David had a problem. The problem is that his body wasn't creating any warmth. And so clothes work only if there's body heat. Yeah, but if there's no body heat coming out, the clothes don't work. So David was very, very weak, and he was not able to keep warm. So the eitzah was, what you have to do is you have to find a young, unmarried girl. Not exactly, something unusual. And she will serve the king. She'll be with him, serving him, and she'll be a sokenet. The word sokenet probably means a warmer, someone to warm him. There's other different terms, but that's a simple interpretation. And she'll lie in his, next to him, and she'll make it warm for the king. So that's what the doctors came up with. This will be the thing to do. You find this girl, and she'll sleep there. It won't be a wife. She never became his wife. He never had physical relations with her, except for lying in the bed together. It's sort of an interesting position for a young woman. She gets to be with the greatest tzaddik in the world when he's 70, and she warms him up, and she's there with him, but that's what it is. And he needs that to stay warm. So it's sort of awkward, sort of strange, but that's the story. They say the question is why she didn't become his wife. So I think the simplest answer is that he already had the maximum wives. A king's not allowed to have too many wives, and he had that when he had 18, and you're not allowed to have more. So therefore, she couldn't become his wife.
Like gone into senses a little bit?
No, not at all. No, the opposite. Quite the opposite. That's what it means. He was zaken Baba Yamim. He was at his highest height in his intellect and in his spirituality, I would say, or very high height.
Even like Isaac, when he was like gone in his eyes, his vision was gone.
No, also not. He just didn't have the heat of his body. That's why. So the sages say reasons why that happened to him, why Hashem decreed that on him. He cut the clothes of Shaul. Okay, that's deep already. I can't explain that so much. What? Disrespecting clothing. Yeah. Yeah. My mother always taught me that also. Never put my clothes on the floor. Because it's not, you have to respect clothing. Clothes give you kavod. You know? And so, okay, so that's the spiritual concept. It needs a lot of depth in that. Okay, v'yavakshu nar yafa b'kol gvul Yisrael yimtzu es Avishag hashunamis v'yaviu osa l'melech. They sought a beautiful girl in all of Yisrael. And they found this woman named Avishag hashunamis, and they brought her to David Melech. Okay, I was wondering why beautiful. So they say also, the Radak says that because she's beautiful, then he has a little bit of arousal, and that makes him warm also. It's part of the doctor's method. It warms him up, that's why. Alive he was, he just couldn't get warm. So he's warmed up from two angles here. Okay. V'nara yafa ad ma'od, v'ati l'melech sokenet, v'at sharsehu v'melech lo yada'ah. She was very beautiful, and she was with him, warming him, and she served him, and the Melech didn't have a relationship with her, no physical relationship. Now, one of his sons was named Adoniyahu. He was his fifth son, and the only one alive. The fifth one, the other four before had passed away already. That was Avshalom, and that was other ones that were already gone. So he was sort of next in line. Vadonia ben Chagis misnasei lemor ani emloch. V'asal rechav parashim v'chamishim ish ratzim lefanav. So he said, I want to be king, this son. And they made him a chariot and riders and people that ran before him, and they made him a whole royal entourage. His father never rebuked him in his life. Why'd you do that? And also he was very beautiful in his visage. And he was born after Avshalom. Okay, so now there's a number of questions here. One question is, why are we telling the story about Avishag, about the girl coming and warming the king? Like as I said, it's sort of a funny story, awkward story. It's his personal life. Why do we have to know that for all generations? Why is that important to know? That's one question. Another question is, what is Adoniah thinking? Like, he thinks he's going to get away with this? Like, he didn't have all of the Jewish nation behind him. Like Avshalom did. That was different. Avshalom built up a whole great following and went against David Melech. But Adoniyahu didn't have that. He just gathered together a few people, and he thought he would be able to just pull this off. And what was bothering him? What did he want exactly? Why did he think that would happen? So it goes on to explain the reasons. First of all, his father never rebuked him. So he thought, now he won't also. I mean, first of all, it makes him into like a narcissist, obviously. If the parents never create limits for the children, you get this narcissist. So here you have this great narcissist. And second of all, he felt that he would get away with it. Because his father was old. His father was, this was saying in the Pesukim over here.
He was inactive, right?
Yeah, and so he's going to have to appoint a new king. So he figured that maybe he could actually get it accomplished. And furthermore, he was next in line. It says in the Pasuk. But there's more to that. It's still strange a little bit. Like, what's bothering him? Why does he think this is going to work? And that's another thing. That's another thing. He's very handsome, very, very handsome. That's another thing. And that's a big factor in people choosing leaders. Very big factor. That's what the Melachim says that. It's clear like that. People make so many subconscious decisions on their exterior impression, So okay. People are very visual. They don't realize it, how much that's affecting their decisions. So now let me tell you something else. Now, but what about the first question? What's the story of Avishag doing here in the beginning of the Sefer? Why is that important to tell us? Okay. And also the other thing is like, okay, he has all these reasons. He has certain things. He has this. He thought his father wouldn't stop him. He thought that he had the beauty. He had the status. But still, it's true. He didn't have all of Am Yisrael behind him. David Melch was strong. He had a big following. So what was he thinking? So the Malbim says like this. Malbim has a long discussion, and he says that it was all about her.
Abishag?
Yeah, that's what he says, and that's why we're starting the Sefer with Abishag, because she was like the most beautiful woman imaginable, and basically Adoniah wanted her. Yeah, and so that's what pushed him to do this crazy thing.
Was he jealous of David?
He wasn't jealous, not exactly. I don't know if he's jealous. It's similar to Avshalom also. Avshalom also did that. Why does it happen like that? I'm not sure what's behind it. But you see the two rebellions. Avshalom went and had a relationship with all the Melachim, and Adoniah wanted to take this Sochenet. Were they jealous? I don't know. I'm calling it jealousy, but it's desire. I don't know if what the father has. Maybe it's a type of like subconscious emulation or something like that. Something very complicated, you know. I'm not sure. So
Envy.
maybe envy. Yeah. Oh, maybe that's a better word. Wanting to have what the father had, the kingliness, the everything. So you find that a lot of times with the sons of leaders. The leader has glory, and the son thinks that's what it's all about, you know? And of course that's not what it's all about. That's like the side effect of doing something great, you know? Anyway, so that's what he says. That's the Malbim explains it. And when you see that, so everything sort of falls into place. You see like he's being driven by this desire. He figures that if he'll become the king, then David Melch wouldn't mind him taking Avishag as his wife, because she wasn't David's wife. And so that's what came to his head. It's sort of crazy that he thought all that, but that's what happens when people get fixated, you know. And later he does. It comes out. It actually comes out. He does say it later. It happens. Yeah, happens. So that's very. It's a good shot. This it's explaining everything like that driving him to Mishugas. He wasn't like Avshalom. It wasn't like the power drive. It was this. It wasn't so much the power drive. Okay. Yudavarav im Yoav ben Sruya, vim Evyaser Akohen v'Yazru acharei Adoniah. So then he spoke with Yoav and with Evyaser the Kohen, and they went after Adoniah. So these were two close associates of David. Why they go after Adoniah? Because first of all, Yoav, David was very upset at him for killing three important people: Avner, Amasa, and Avshalom. And David was very unhappy with him, and he tried to depose him, but didn't succeed because he actually put Amasa in his place, and then Yoav killed Amasa. So he wanted to depose Yoav, even though Yoav was a great general and a great associate of David in most ways. He just was very tough and took things into his hand, and David Melch was unhappy with him, and he knew that. So Yoav knew that. And David Melch wasn't able to depose him. He was too strong. He was too important. It's really interesting how the politics worked here. He was not able to get rid of him. He would have for sure. He tried to and didn't succeed. So even a person like David Melch can't control everything. Like the people around him, you have to work with them. You see this dynamic. It's very, very interesting here. But Yoav knew that his days were numbered, and he was worried what was going to happen after Shlomo would become king, because they knew that Shlomo was next in line. They were going against him. So what they wanted, that it should shift from Shlomo to Adoniah, and then Yoav would have a secure position. And also Evyaser also was second to Tzadok. Tzadok was the Kohen, and Evyaser was actually Kohen Gadol, but Tzadok was close to David Melch. So Evyaser also wanted to go with Adoniah. But Tzadok Kohen of Vinyahu ben Yehoyada, V'nasan Navi v'Shimi v'Rei v'Giborim asher leDavid lo yu im Adoniyahu. So then you had all the other followers of David, the close associates of David. They didn't go with Adoniah. They thought it scandalous, but they knew already that David had chosen Shlomo Melech, and they said no way. And they didn't have those ulterior motives that justified in their mind, so they stayed with David. Yizbach Adoniyahu, son of Akar Umari, im Evan Hazochelis, Asher Etzel Ein Rogel, Tikra es Kol Achiv Echav, Bnei Melech Ulakol Anshe Yehuda Avdei Melech. So Adoniyahu gathered together all his associates. This place like Evan Hazochel, the flowing stone, place where the river was by the stone. And they called all of his brothers, the sons of the king, and all the people of Yehuda, the servants of the king. Vesnasan Anavi, Uvenyahu, Vesigiborim, Veshlama, Achiv, Lokara. But Nasan Anavi and these other ones that were close to David HaMelech, he didn't call them. So basically, he was gathering together very powerful, important people. Like Yoav was the king of the army. It sounds familiar to what we've seen in our days, what was happening before this war. Like people were getting the army people against the government, etc. So when you do that, then that's when things shift. So he had Yoav, who was head of the army, and he had Tzadok, who was the Kohen Gadol. I mean, he had Tzadok. He had Evitar, the Kohen Gadol. So he was gathering around him the important people. And he thought that David HaMelech would just cede. Tzadok was one close to David. He stayed with David. Okay, so they went and they made sacrifices. Yomer Nasan, Albat Sheva, Aim Shlomo. Lemor lo shamat ki malach Adoniyahu ben Chagiz ba'Adonenu David lo yida. I want to bring in another detail from the Malbim also. Why he thought he'd get away with this? Because the way it works with David HaMelech now is there was no one there with him. His wives weren't coming in. No one was coming in. Only Abishag was there with him. And it was awkward to have the people come in. She's sleeping next to him. So basically, he wasn't cut off from the world. And therefore they thought, well, David HaMelech is not getting information. We're going to build the Maluk, and it's going to be already a done deal. And then that's how it'll work. But the only thing was Nasan Navi, who's a Navi, and he was very on top of things. So then he wanted to tell David. He realized that it has to be stopped. It's always also the politics here are very interesting also because what are people going to think when they see the king's sons and they see like the king's supporters gathering around and being mamlich Adoniyahu, the king's son, the one next in line? What are they going to think? So maybe they'll think that David wanted that, and David doesn't know what's going on. So that's how politics works. You create an impression, people believe it, and then you can't undo it.
The tail wags the dog.
Tail wags the dog. Yeah. I saw one this time. Somebody said, one of the early Zionist leaders, he says, what's going to be with the Atalina? Like, I think that the two Zionist groups attacked, the Ben Gurion's people attacked.
Oh, yeah. It's a ship.
They shot at the Begin. Not Lucky, the other one's what's her name? What? They're bringing a big ship of weapons during the War of Independence.
The weapons belong to the left.
No, not Lucky. They're good. Anyway, they shot at them because they wanted to, I don't know, because there was a competition between these two groups. So they said, well, what's the future people going to say if you shoot at them? He says, it doesn't matter, we'll just rewrite history.
They did.
Yeah.
For a very, very long time.
So that's how politics works. Okay, politicians could work like that. Okay, so here we go. You need a lot of Siyata Shemaya, to survive against these kind of forces. Yeah, okay. Yomer Nasan el Bat Sheva, Aim Shlomo. So Nasan Navi said to the Bat Sheva, the mother of Shlomo, Lemor halo shamat ki malach Adoniyahu ben Chagiz ba'Adonenu David lo yada. So Adoniyahu is making himself the king, and David doesn't know. V'ta lechi e'atzeich na'etze umalti es nafshech es nefesh b'nei Shlomo. Come now, and I'll give you advice, and you'll save your soul and the soul of your son Shlomo. So he's telling her about Sheva that she has to act right away. First of all, he's making himself king right now, so there's not time to discuss it and negotiate it. It's happening on the spot. The takeover is happening. And number two, you and your son will get killed because you're in the way. Okay. L'chi uvoi el hamelech David, v'amart elav halo atad Adoni hamelech nishpater lamascha. Lemor ki Shlomo b'nei yimloch acharai, v'hu yeshev al kisi, madua malach Adoniyahu. He tells Nasan Navi, tells Bathsheba, go into David HaMelech, tell him, didn't you promised me, you made an oath to me, in fact, with the name of Hashem, a full-fledged oath, that our son, King Shlomo would be the king. And now, Adoniyahu is becoming the king. So what's happening here? Vinei odach medaberet sham im hamelech, v'ni avo acharayich u'maletzi es tvarayich. And while you're still talking, I'll come after you and I'll fill in what's missing from your words. So you see here also he's a Navi, and he's also politically very astute. I saw that throughout the Sefer before, also in Shmuel. You see the leaders, not only do they have to be good and observant and frum and everything, they also have to be astute. You have to be smart to be a leader. Because politics are real, and you have to deal with them, and people are complicated. Okay, so Nassan Navi was extremely smart. So he sets up a whole system for turning things around. You go in, tell him what's going on. You promised me that that Shlomo will be the king. And now Adoniyahu, and I'll come after you. Tavo Bat Sheva El Melech HaChadra. So Bat Sheva came into the room. The Melech Zakein Ma'od. The king was very old, but Vishag Hashunamis Misharis Hismelech. Avishag was serving the king. Tikod Bat Sheva V'tishtachu LeMelech. Bat Sheva bowed down to the king. Your Melech Malach. That's not the way for a wife to bow down to the king. She would usually just come in and out, like a wife would do, but now she's bowing down, so he sees something's up. Tomer Adoni Ata Nishbata Hashem Elokecha Lamasecha Ki Shlomo B'nei Chimlo Chacharai Hu Yeshev Kisei. You promised me that Shlomo will be the next king. You swore to me. You made an oath to Hashem. Adoniya Malach. Adoniya Melech Lo Yadatam. And behold, now Adoniya is ruling, and you didn't know. Yizbach Shor Marie Vatzon Larov V'Yikra L'Kol B'nei Melech Yavasar Korn L'Yoav Sar Tava L'Shlomo Avdecha L'Kara. So what's going on here? Why is he making a feast and not calling Shlomo, and everyone else he is calling? So you see that it's not just something casual. He's leaving out the one that was designed to be the king. V'ta Adoni Melech Einei Kol Yisrael Alecha. And now all the eyes of all Yisrael are to you to see who's going to sit on the throne after you. And it will be when you pass away, then I and my son Shlomo will be chata'im. So what's chata'im? So it could mean we will be like left out. Because lachtia tamatara means to miss. But it could mean another thing also. The Melachim says it means we'll both be considered sinners. Because people knew about the event of Bathsheba and David HaMelech. And people thought that maybe, really, Shlomo Melech was a mamzer. And maybe Bathsheba did adultery. So it's going to look to them like that's really what happened, and that's why they got ousted. And you see, and that's why Adoniyahu came in. Okay, so that's her. So what does she do? What's Bathsheba's line? She's basically pointing a finger at Adoniyahu, saying he's stealing your malchus. That's what she comes with. He then comes in Nassan Navi. Vinay. Odena medaberet in the Melech, but Nassan Navi ba. She's still speaking with the king, and then Nassan Navi comes in. V'aginu lemelech lemor hinei Nassan Navi v'yavol lefnei Melech yishtachu lemelech alapav artzon. Nassan Navi comes in and bows down. Yomer Nassan Adoniya Melech. Atam Harta Adoniyahu Yimloch Acharai Hu Yeshev Kisei. So Nassan Navi, what he does is he comes from a different angle. He comes from an angle of asking David HaMelech why he's coronating Adoniyahu. He's pretending to assume that that's what David wants.
David does not know what's going on with Adoniyahu.
David doesn't know, right? Exactly. He doesn't know if Nassan Navi knows that it's supposed to be Shlomo or not. And he doesn't know what's going on. So Nassan is making himself like he's innocent, and he's assuming that they were going to be doing this without David HaMelech's permission. So the Melachim says like this. The Melachim says here, he says, when you want to bring something into a person's consciousness, you have to present from all the angles possible. So that's what they did. So Bathsheba presented from the angle of, look, Adoniyahu is doing something treacherous, and he's stealing the melucha. And Nassan Navi came and said, from the other angle, is that why would you be appointing Adoniyahu as king when you were supposed to be appointing Shlomo Melech? So you come from two different angles. What?
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? So because people you don't know which angle they're going to hear, and everybody sees different things. Yarda Yom. So it's like he says this is like a rule in life. Like you want to get something through to a person, you have to approach it from as many angles as possible. Yarda Yom v'Yizbach Shor Marie V'Tzon Rav Yikra L'Kol B'nei Melech V'Sar Tzava L'Yavasar Kohen Yinam Ochlim V'Shosim L'Fanav V'Yomru Yechia Melech Adoniyahu. So it turns out you must have appointed Adoniyahu because he's being appointed the king with all these B'nei Melech. V'li Ani Avdecha V'Latzadok HaKohen Yinav En Yehoyada V'Shtomo Avdecha Lokar. But he didn't call us. You're very close associates. So why not? Like he's coming as if he doesn't know. Is this coming? Could it be that this is coming from the king, and you didn't make known to us who's really going to become the king after you? Is that what's happening? Like in other words, you're surprised that we didn't know it was going to be Adoniyahu, and now is that what's happening? Why did they call us? Also, something strange here. So in other words, if they hadn't done this clarity, with such clarity, David Melech would have been maybe not quick to respond. He said, let me discuss it with him. We'll find out what he's doing, and we'll set it straight. But no, they did it in such a way that they realized that it's being stolen. This king is being stolen. I've seen this happen before. I've seen people's leadership being stolen. And you tell them they don't believe you, and then it's gone. People are moving around, they're making moves, they're taking over, and the person in charge doesn't know, and before you know it, he's gone. Yeah.
Like with Vladimir Lenin and
Stalin took him over?
Yeah, before anyone knew it, Stalin was just
Yeah. It has to do with creating impressions that the people look at things a certain way and putting things in power. Okay. So he said, bring me Bathsheba. She went out when Nas and the Rabbi was speaking, and now she comes back in. He says, makes a shvua, makes an oath. Just like I made an oath to you that King Shlomo will be the king, that's what's going to happen. She said, she said, King David should live forever. What do you mean should live forever? So Mom says it means three things. It means number one, he should have a long life, like with no end, ki'ilu. And also it means that his line should live on forever through the appropriate son, through the true son. You want the right person to lead after you, and then it's going to be if you're leading forever. That's the second shot the Malvin brings. And the third shot is, he says it's like a sod, it's like hidden Torah. Is David Melech is always there. David Melech is the king till the end at some level. He's embodied within the Mashiach. Okay, so that's what she gave him the bracha. David Melech David. Kiruli l'tzadik u'kohen v'nasan u'navi v'niyal ben Yehoyada v'yavo lefnei Melech. Call me all these people in. V'yomer Melech lehem v'chu emechem es avdi nechem v'yirkavtem es Shlomo b'ni ala pirda asher li v'radatem oso el gichon. So the truth is, the halacha is that when you have the son of a king, he doesn't need to be a new coronation again. He automatically becomes king, unless someone else is, and then the other person needs to be coronated. But nevertheless, David Melech wanted to coronate him, now do all the ceremonies of anointing a king, because to show that he was the king. This was not necessary 100%, but he did all the things you do for a new king. And he called him in, and he put him on the mule, which was designated for the king. So nothing that's designated for a king can go to a non-king. So it shows he's the king already. And also bring him down to the Gichon. That's the Mei Gichon, which runs under Yerushalayim, and that's the place where you coronate kings. And you coronate kings by a river, because it's like wishing for a bracha that the Malchus, the reign of the king, should be calm like a river, flow calmly like a river. So they brought the anointing oil, they anointed him, and they blew a shofar, and they said the king should live, King Shlomo should live. So that's what Shlomo Melech is telling them to do. Lisa Macharav Vav Yashav Kisi, Puyam Loch Tachtai. Vosot Sivisi Lios Nagid O Yisrael Val Yehuda. He'll come up from the river and he'll sit on my throne. And so David Melch is saying, not only will he be the king, he's going to start being the king now. And so I'm going to be Mamlichim in my lifetime. And he'll be the king over all of Am Yisrael. So in other words, there's no room for complexities coming in. If he would say, I'm guaranteeing some of the kingship and I'll give the anointment and wait, then still they would overturn that around. Yes, the Malbim also says, why did Adoniyahu jump to do this? Why didn't he wait till after David Melech died and then make the revolution? That's the normal way to make a revolution, when there's no established power. David Melech was still in power. So why do then? Because the answer is because of Avishag. He wanted to go and rule with David's permission and take Avishag. So David Melech said, okay, so what's going to do is we're going to put in Shlomo now. And he's going to be king of my lifetime. Jan ben Yehoyada as a melech. Yomer Amen Ken Yomar Hashem Elokez Adonai Melech. So they all agreed, and they said Hashem should help us to make this happen. It's an interesting thing. I don't know why this is exactly, but it's very hard for leaders to replace themselves while they're still leading. I think you find that a problem happens very, very often. And you have very powerful leaders, and they get old and they become less capable, and they don't fill in the power gap before they leave. What happens is after they do die, then there starts to be a power struggle. That's what very often happens. And if they would just put in the successor while they were alive, everything would be better. But it's very hard for them to do that. And why is it hard for them? I don't know. I think because mostly they can't imagine somebody else doing what they're doing. Even the best person, they know that how much is involved in running the kingship, and they can't imagine anything. So they're going to say, "We'll leave it to the divine providence to sort it out." Something like that. It seems like I'm just saying a theory. I don't know why exactly. It happens so often. It's very hard for them to put in a replacement. People to do that.
Maybe because they're one of the reasons is what the Rav says, maybe the next ruler doesn't know what he's doing, or maybe it's like they wanted to stay in the power still. Like
hold on to the cause.
They're still into it. They're so excited about being a king. But David Melech wasn't. He wasn't doing anything. He was completely worn out. So for him it would have been easy. But the divine providence went around that he would do that. The best thing is to put the king in position in your lifetime. And it's a very good thing. It's very happy for a king to do that. If you can find the right person, put him in. But I don't know. He hadn't done it yet. Not sure why. You have this story before. You have it with Moshe and Yeshua. They have an interesting discussion between Hashem and Moshe. Because Moshe says, put in Yeshua, he'll bring them into Eretz Yisrael. So Moshe understands that to mean there'll be a group of them, not just Yeshua by himself. They'll come in together. And later Hashem corrects him. He says, no, I don't mean that. I mean, you put in Yeshua that he'll be the sole leader. He'll have the full power, and everybody will have to listen to him. And that's what I want. There's never more than one leader. It has to be a strong leader. But Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid of that. Same thing. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't think that Yeshua could do it. Hashem had to tell him that he could do it.
Another reason might be also especially when leaders are I think advanced in their age. As long as they still have this position, they're leading a group of people, leading a kingdom,
right.
The king. They still have a mission in life.
Yeah.
If they give that up, it's kind of okay, what do with the rest of my life? That was my whole purpose until now. I was the king, I was the leader here, and then maybe that's...
That's interesting. They say about President Nixon, after he retired, he set up a whole office. He brought a secretary with him. He set up a whole office where he went to retire, and he kept pretending he was president.
Right.
I think it was Nixon. It was one of the, they couldn't get over it. Maybe it wasn't Nixon. It was one of them. It was very, very interesting. But I don't know if that applies to David Melech. I don't think so. Okay, let's see further. Kasher Hashem im Adonai Melech ken yehi im shomo vigadel es kiso kisei Adonai Melech David. So they gave him a bracha. This is Ben Yehoyada giving a bracha to King David. He's saying Hashem should put in your son Shlomo, and his throne should be greater than the throne of the king. So what does that mean? Why would his throne be greater than David Melech's throne? How could there be such a thing? How could you say that to David Melech also? What does that mean? So first we would say that, first of all, David Melech his father wasn't a king. Was Hedjud. Whereas Shlomo, his father's going to be a king. So Shlomo is building on the power of kingship, which is already built up at David Melech. So he's going to be able to kick it up a new level. So that's a nachas for David Melech. That's a good thing. V'yod Tzadok Kohen v'nasan anavi v'neo ben Yehoyada v'kreisi v'plesi v'yirkivu Shlomo al pirdas Melech David v'yachu because they brought him down to the Gichon to coronate Shlomo Melech. V'kach Tzadok Kohen es keren Hashemen v'naol v'yimshach es Shlomo v'yizku b'shofar v'yirmu kol ha'am yichia Melech Shlomo. They coronated the king Shlomo and they for the shofar and shouted out all the people. V'yalu kol ha'am acharav v'am ha'halalim Mechalalim, Bechalilim, they're playing flutes, Usmechim, Simcha Gedola, Tibaka, Aretz, Bekolam. The earth resounded with their voice. There was a great voice of singing and rejoicing because of the new coronation. Yishma Adoniyahu, B'kol Krim Asher To, Pem Kilu Lechol, Yishma Yoav is called a shofar, Yamadua called a Kirya Homa. They were trying to wonder why the whole city was rejoicing and shouting. What's going on? There were two possibilities.
War.
What?
War.
Okay, no, that's not one of the possibilities. I don't think they thought of that. They thought it's interesting what you're saying, but they thought either the first thing that came to thought is that maybe they found out that there was a new king and they were rejoicing for Adoniyahu. They weren't sure it was bad. They're going to find out another possibility. Odena b'daber v'nei Yonasan ben Yavyasar Cohen ba Yomer Adoniyahu. Bo ki ish chayil ata v'tov tevaseh. So then Yonatan came. Yonatan was the son of Eviasar. He was a Cohen. The Cohen's job is always to see the good and to say good things. As I see you're coming, you're going to bring us good news. So they thought it meant the people were rejoicing because they heard about Adoniyahu. That's what they thought. He was there watching. He stayed behind. Didn't go to the coronation of Adoniyahu because he wanted to stay behind what's going to happen in the palace. So he came to tell them. V'yan Yonatan v'yomer Adoniyahu. Aval Adonenu Amelech David Himlich es Shlomo. He says that's not what happened. It's not like you think. It's not good news. It's that he coronated Shlomo. Yishlach Yito Hamelech et Tzadok Kohen v'Snasan Navi Yom ben Yehoyada v'Kreis v'Plesi. That's the Sanhedrin. V'Yarkivu Oso al Pirdos Hamelech. V'Yimshachu Oso Tzadok Kohen v'Snasan Navi Hamelech v'Gichon. V'Yalu Misham Smechin v'Teo Makiria Hu HaKol Asher Shematem. He made it unreversible that no one's allowed to sit on the king's throne except the king. So Shlomo is absolutely instated. David lemor yetiv elokecha Hashem shomishmecha v'gadol es kiso mikisacha yishtachavu melech ala mishkav. And the king even bowed to the new king. David Melech bowed also. V'gam kacha amar melech Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael asher nasan hayom yoshev al kisi v'einai ra'os. And he gave a bracha to Hashem, bless Hashem that he was able to see Shlomo on the throne. So they came with the news, and basically the game was up. Dinner was finished. And see, so it was amazing things. You see, like, it didn't take much to undo this revolution. Most of the Am was with David. And as soon as, and all it took was Nasan Navi's smart Eitzah to undo this. And the question is, what did he think was going to happen to Adoniyahu? The answer is, it was the power of romance. You know, he was like cuckoo. Okay, that's the day's piece.
Question: well, why didn't Adoniyahu if he himself wanted to be proactive, being a king? Why didn't he do it in full-fledged? Why did he
That was full-fledged. He took the main leaders. He took the army leaders. He took the Kohen Gadol. He went and made a suda with korbanos. That's the full thing.
Then why didn't he fight with the Shlomo HaMelech?
Because he was outnumbered. He didn't have a chance. You see, what he now is he runs away, and he just gives up because these are a small group of guys. It wasn't that strong. Even though it was Yoav, he didn't have the whole army behind him. They didn't all the people. Basically, Nasan Rabbi succeeded 100%. They made a big taharam. They went down to the Gichon. They coronated He coronated Shlomo, and all the people heard about it and came and supported it. Because David Melch, great support. Adoniyahu was crazy. It was a big far shot. They would make it. That's basically the way it is. It's really interesting. Okay, very good.